Welcome back to some new PettyRevenge stories, where people share small victories over those who wronged them. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. And now let's start with the first story. It's called He Wouldn't Move. Many years ago, I worked at an office in the city center, just a couple of blocks from my rented apartment. I often ate lunch at home. It was so nice being able to relax there in the middle of the workday. That was until summer rolled around. You see, there was a bar right next to the very narrow door, leading from the building's stairwell to the street. Occasionally, I'd come home to find someone sitting on the doorstep with a beer in hand. Usually, I'd just say, "Excuse me, I need to get in here," and they'd stand up and let me pass, often apologizing as they moved. It wasn't a big deal. But then, one day, I came home for lunch and found a construction worker, around 50 years old, wearing a high-visibility vest and safety helmet, sitting on the doorstep with a half-drunk beer in hand. I said my usual, "Excuse me," but instead of moving, he looked up at me with clear annoyance, looked back down and stayed put. I had to awkwardly lean over him, unlock the door and squeeze past. When I came back to work, there he was again, still sitting on the doorstep with another fresh beer. He refused to budge when I asked to get by. The same thing happened the next day. This time he mumbled something under his breath as I passed. It was infuriating. Day after day, this guy ruined my peaceful lunch routine, to the point where I stopped going home for lunch altogether. But then I had an idea. I took a longer lunch one day, grabbed a sandwich and sat at a bench across the street to watch. Sure enough, I saw him arrive at the bar, grab a few beers and settle onto my doorstep. When he eventually got up to leave, I followed him down the street to his workplace. Here's where luck was on my side. He was working on a building project I knew well, because my colleagues and I were the engineers for that site. I didn't know his name, but his distinctive goatee and mullet made him easy to identify. I went to my colleague's floor and asked them about the site manager for that project. They said he was a great guy, professional and friendly. My eyes lit up. I asked them to let the site manager know that one of his workers had been seen drinking beers during lunch at the nearby bar and returning to work under the influence. I described the worker. About 50, brown hair, goatee and a mullet. 3 days later, my colleague told me the site manager was furious when he heard the story. He immediately recognized who it was. With zero tolerance for unsafe behavior on site, the manager decided to follow the worker at lunch. Sure enough, he found him drinking on my doorstep. When the worker returned to the site after lunch, the site manager fired him on the spot, in front of his entire crew. The manager wanted to make an example out of him, to ensure others didn't follow suit. I later heard that word spread quickly about the incident, and finding work in the area was going to be tough for that guy. The next story is called Always Hungry. About 25 years ago, I used to work in sales. We travel in a van with about 4 to 5 people, working long 12 to 14-hour days. I usually packed my own lunch, snacks and drinks, but we'd also stop at convenience stores to grab something on the go. 2 guys in the van had a habit of mooching food, or asking others to buy them something, because they were always hungry. One evening, I'd had enough of the constant requests. At our last stop before a 2-hour drive home, I decided I didn't want to listen to their complaints about being hungry for the entire trip. I bought myself a sandwich, a liter of soda and a big bag of Fritos. Then I gave the bag of Fritos to the 2 moochers. They were thrilled, for about 30 minutes. That's when they started asking for something to drink. I told them, "Sorry, you only said you were hungry, not thirsty. I don't have anything for you to drink." Then they asked if they could have some of my soda. I politely declined and finished the last sip in front of them before taking a nap. Word got around about what happened, and from then on, anytime those 2 asked for food, the only thing anyone would buy for them was Fritos. Eventually, they stopped asking altogether. The third story is called 3-Day Calls. I worked part-time 4 days a week, always on the same days, as stated in my contract. My boss is generally fantastic. She checks in on our workload and works with us to adjust if things get overwhelming. She also understands that we have lives outside of work. For instance, I once won opera tickets for the following week, and even though it was an especially busy time, she encouraged me to go and rearranged the schedule so I could enjoy it. However, there's one thing my boss didn't seem to fully grasp. I don't work for free. On my days off, I don't check emails, answer questions, or take non-urgent calls. If it's a genuine emergency, that's different. But otherwise, when I'm off, I am off. Not long after I started, on one of my days off, my phone rang. It was my boss. Thinking it was urgent, I scrambled to pick it up. Turns out it wasn't anything pressing. She just reviewed some paperwork I submitted and wanted to clarify a few details. She even admitted it could have waited until Monday, but thought it would be nice to get it off her desk. I answered her question, but politely asked her not to call on my day off, unless it was both urgent and important. She apologized and said she understood. A few weeks later, my phone rang again on my day off. It was my boss. I scrambled to answer, concerned again, only to find out she was calling to tell me my vacation request for next year was approved. While it was good news, it absolutely could have been an email or waited until Monday. She thought I wouldn't mind, since it was positive, and I told her I appreciated the update, but I stored that moment for later. Fast forward a few weeks. During a team meeting, my boss asked if anyone could work a day between 2 holidays, when most people take the day off for a long weekend. She said we could check our calendars and regroup at the next meeting. That Sunday morning, over breakfast with my boyfriend, I realized he was working that day, so I figured I could too. And then I had an idea. I decided to call my boss. She answered almost immediately, sounding a bit panicked. She asked what was wrong, and I said, "Oh, nothing special. I just wanted to let you know I can work that day if needed." She was quiet for a moment and then said, "Really? I thought something bad happened. Why are you calling me on a Sunday for this? It could have waited." With the sweetest tone, I replied, "Yes, I know it's your day off, but since it's just a quick bit of good news, I thought you wouldn't mind a short call." Her response? "Thank you, but next time, please wait until Monday." After that, she never called me on my days off again. I've been at this job for 2 years, and our boundaries are crystal clear. The next story is called Teaching a Lesson. In my town, we have a system where residents can rake leaves to the curb, and a truck comes around to vacuum them up. It's a free service, but there are a few important rules. You are asked not to rake your leaves to the curb until the week your street is scheduled, and you should keep them off the street itself. These rules help prevent issues, like cars catching fire from parking on dry leaves, or leaves clogging storm drains. The leaf collection usually starts around 8 AM, and my street isn't scheduled for another 2 weeks. So I was surprised to hear the truck a few blocks away at 6 AM. Curious, I called the Department of Public Works to ask if there had been a schedule change. The person in charge explained what was going on. There's a cul-de-sac in my neighborhood, with a few residents who don't believe the rules apply to them. Instead of waiting for their turn, they blow their leaves into the street, creating hazards and disruptions. To avoid issues like fires or blocked drains, the DPW has to send a truck out for an unscheduled pickup, which throws off the timeline for everyone else. Despite being asked repeatedly to follow the rules, these residents maintain that they shouldn't have to wait and expect their leaves to be collected on demand. So the DPW came up with a clever solution. They sent their truck out at 6 AM, parked in the middle of the cul-de-sac, and ran the vacuum full blast for about 20 minutes. It wasn't long before the sleepy residents came out to complain about the noise. The last story is called Food Thief. Back when I was in college, I rented a room in an apartment with a shared kitchen and bathroom. Unfortunately, the landlord wasn't too picky about who he rented to, and I ended up sharing the space with two guys, who turned out to be less than ideal roommates. They were stealing food from the cupboards and fridge, and despite confronting them, each one just blamed the other. That's when I decided on a little petty revenge. I bought a box of brownie mix and a pack of laxatives. My plan was to bake some brownies with about 12 doses mixed in, assuming they'd eat one or two, get an upset stomach, and hopefully learn to leave my food alone. But when I came home a couple of days later, I found the entire pan of brownies had been eaten. Later that night, I woke up to the sound of one of them throwing up, followed by some intense dry heaving. It went on for a while, and I even started to worry that they might need to go to the hospital. The next day, I casually asked one of them if they were feeling okay. He said, "It felt like everything in my body was trying to get out at once." I never told him it was me, because the result was far more extreme than I had planned. Let's just say they didn't touch my food again after that. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. Also, if you want to support me further, check out the channel membership or Patreon. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.